There's a sentence written in the year 359 that shouldn't exist. 7 words from a man watching his own religion in real time. Not a critic, not an enemy, one of Christianity's own historians, Jerome, looking around at his church and writing, "The whole world groaned to find itself Arian." Here's why that sentence is impossible. 30 years earlier, the question of who Jesus actually was, God himself, or the greatest thing God ever created, had been settled. Officially. Permanently. 300 bishops, an emperor, a creed. Case closed. Jerome is telling us the case reopened, and the other side was winning. Which means the Jesus that 2 billion people pray to today, fully God, co-eternal, one substance with the Father, that Jesus almost lost to a different Jesus, a created Jesus, a Jesus closer to how Islam sees him than to anything in a modern church. And here's the part almost nobody knows. This was just the final near miss. There were 4 others: fire, siege, persecution, war. Any one of them goes differently, and the largest religion on earth is a footnote. Let me show you how close it actually came. Start with a number. After the crucifixion, after the arrest, the trial, the execution, the disciples' scattering, how many people on earth still believed in Jesus of Nazareth? Scholars' best estimate, a few dozen, maybe 20. Not 20,000, 20. You've had more people at a birthday party. And in 1st century Judea, that number meant one thing: extinction. Because Rome had a system for men like Jesus, and the system worked every time. Around 44 CE, a prophet named Theudas convinced 400 people the Jordan River would part at his command. Rome didn't wait for the miracle. Cavalry rode out, slaughtered the crowd, and carried Theudas's head back to Jerusalem on display. A few years later, a man they called the Egyptian gathered thousands on the Mount of Olives. Josephus says 30,000 in one book, 4,000 in another. Roman infantry killed 400 of them in an afternoon. The Egyptian fled. His movement evaporated. We don't even know his name. That was the pattern. Leader executed, followers scattered. Silence. Every single time. Jesus was executed around 30 CE by the Roman prefect Pontius Pilate. His followers ran. By the Roman playbook, this story was already over. But those few dozen people had a problem the other movements didn't. And strangely, it's the problem that kept them alive. They couldn't agree on what had just happened. Was he a prophet? The Messiah? Something more? Was he God? Hold that question, because for the next 300 years, nobody will agree on the answer. And that argument will nearly destroy them long after Rome fails to. Fast forward 34 years. Rome is on fire. 64 CE. The fire burns for 6 days and guts 10 of the city's 14 districts. And the rumor spreading through the ashes is dangerous. The emperor did it himself. Nero needs someone to blame, fast. He finds a group perfect for it, small enough to be defenseless, strange enough to be believable. A sect Romans already whispered about. They were rumored to drink blood and eat flesh in secret meetings. A grotesque misreading of the Eucharist, but in Rome, the rumor was enough. What happened next was recorded by Tacitus, a Roman historian who despised Christians, which is exactly why we believe him. Hostile witnesses don't exaggerate in your favor. Christians were arrested, interrogated. They gave up names. Tacitus says an immense multitude was convicted. They were sewn into animal skins and torn apart by dogs, crucified in rows. And this detail has survived 2,000 years because it's impossible to forget. Set on fire at night as human torches to light Nero's garden parties. Peter and Paul are both believed to have died in that purge. The church in Rome, the movement's beachhead in the capital of the world, was nearly wiped off the map. Nearly. Because by 64 CE, the movement wasn't in one city anymore. Someone had spent 20 years making sure of that. We'll meet him in a moment. But notice what Nero's fire couldn't burn: the question. The communities that survived were already teaching different things about Jesus, reading different texts, and the men who could have settled it, the ones who actually knew him, were now dead or dying. The apostolic generation was disappearing and taking the answer with it. 6 years later, it gets worse, much worse. In 66 CE, Judea rises against Rome. It's hopeless. Everyone sane knows it's hopeless, but a century of humiliation finally detonates. Rome answers with 4 legions, and in 70 CE, the general Titus breaches the walls of Jerusalem. The city is annihilated. The temple, the center of Jewish worship, one of the wonders of the ancient world, is torn down stone by stone. Hundreds of thousands die or are marched off in chains. Now understand what this meant for the Jesus movement specifically. Jerusalem wasn't just a city to them, it was the mother church, the original community, led by James, the actual brother of Jesus, until his execution in 62. These were the people who could say the 6 most powerful words in the movement. I was there, I knew him. Some later accounts say they escaped to a town called Pella across the Jordan before the siege. Maybe, historians still argue, but either way the outcome is the same. The community closest to the living memory of Jesus was broken beyond recognition. Think about what that means. From this moment on, if you wanted to know who Jesus really was, there was no one left to ask. Only texts, only interpretations, only arguments. The question was now an orphan, and orphaned questions get adopted by whoever moves fastest. So why did this movement survive 2 catastrophes that should each have been fatal? Because of one man, and he almost ended it before it began. Paul of Tarsus, Roman citizen, educated Pharisee, and in the early 30s CE, a professional persecutor of Christians. He hunted them. Then, on the road to Damascus, something happened to him. He called it an encounter with the risen Christ. Whatever it was, he walked out of it and switched sides completely. And Paul saw something nobody in Jerusalem wanted to see. This movement, as a Jewish sect, was mathematically doomed. To join, a Roman man had to accept circumcision, adult circumcision in the ancient world, plus dietary laws, plus purity codes. The barriers were suicide for growth. Paul tore them down. Faith alone, he argued, no preconditions, the God of Abraham, open to everyone. Jerusalem pushed back, James and Peter both. Paul pushed harder. Paul won. Then he spent 2 decades building Corinth, Ephesus, Philippi, Thessalonica, Athens, Rome. City after city, community after community, stitched together with letters written before the Gospels even existed. The oldest Christian documents on earth are Paul's mail. That's why Nero failed. That's why the fall of Jerusalem didn't end it. Paul had turned a movement with a center into a network with none. You can't decapitate something that doesn't have a head. But a network with no head has another name, a network with no referee. And the argument about who Jesus was, that argument was about to go to war with itself. Here's what they don't teach you. For its first 300 years, there was no single Christianity. There were Christianities, plural, and they disagreed about everything that matters. Some believed Jesus was pure spirit, that his body was an illusion, that the crucifixion never physically happened because God cannot suffer. Some followed a shipping magnate named Marcion, who taught something staggering, that the God of the Old Testament, the jealous, wrathful creator, and the loving Father of Jesus were two different gods. Marcion threw out the entire Hebrew Bible and built the first Christian canon in history. 1 edited gospel, 10 letters of Paul. His church spread so fast that a contemporary said his followers were in every nation. He wasn't a fringe crank. He was, for a while, winning. Others taught that salvation came through gnosis, secret knowledge reserved for the spiritually awake. An elite Christianity, a members-only Christianity. Run the tape differently and the consequences are enormous. If Marcion wins, the Bible has no Old Testament, no Abraham, no Moses, no Psalms. Christianity's entire connection to Judaism severed. If the Gnostics win, there's no universal church at all, just a mystery cult whispering to initiates. The version that survived, the one we now call Orthodox, won partly through something unglamorous: organization. Bishops, creeds, succession lists, an anchor in ancient scripture, which in the Roman mind meant legitimacy. But winning the structure war didn't answer the question. Who was Jesus? Still open, still burning. And now the empire itself was about to try one final time to make the whole problem disappear, by killing everyone who cared about it. February 23rd, 303 CE. The Feast of Terminus, the Roman god of endings and boundaries. The date was chosen deliberately. This was the day Rome would terminate Christianity. By now the movement was maybe 6 million strong, 1 in 10 people in the empire, too big to ignore. And the Emperor Diocletian had decided it was a disease in the Roman body. At dawn, soldiers demolished the great church of Nicaea in what's now northwestern Turkey, within sight of the imperial palace. Then came the edicts, each worse than the last. Every church demolished, every scripture burned, every cleric imprisoned. Then the final order. Every Christian in the empire sacrifices to the Roman gods or dies. In the East, it was carried out with industrial cruelty. Eusebius, an eyewitness, catalogued the methods: burnings, drownings, the mines, with the flat exhaustion of a man who had seen too much. But in the West, something strange happened. The commander there, a man named Constantius, barely enforced it. Churches came down, but executions were rare. Remember his name. His son is about to change everything. 8 years, the most systematic religious extermination campaign in Roman history. And it failed. Because you cannot burn down a network by burning one region of it. It left scars though. Clergy who had surrendered their scriptures were branded traditores, the ones who handed over. It's where the word traitor comes from. The church that crawled out of the persecution was alive, but fractured, bitter, and still arguing about the same unanswered question it was born with. 300 years, still no answer. The answer was coming, and it would arrive because of a battle that made no sense. October 28th, 312 CE. Constantine, son of Constantius, stands outside Rome with an army roughly half the size of the one inside it. The man inside is Maxentius. He holds the walls, the treasury, the grain, the Praetorian Guard. He has already beaten 2 sieges by doing exactly one thing: staying put. The walls of Rome are unbeatable. All he has to do is nothing. Instead, and 17 centuries later, historians still can't fully explain this. Maxentius walks out. He crosses the Tiber on a pontoon bridge and offers open battle at the Milvian Bridge. Constantine's cavalry breaks his flanks. The retreat collapses the bridge. Maxentius drowns in the river, in armor. Constantine credited the victory to the Christian god. He'd marked his soldiers' shields with a Christian symbol after, sources say, a vision or a dream. The accounts disagree, and none are eyewitness. Was his conversion sincere? He kept honoring the sun god for years. He was baptized only on his deathbed. Most historians land on sincerity and political genius operating at the same time. But here's the only calculation that matters. If Maxentius stays behind his walls, Constantine loses. No Edict of Milan in 313. No legal Christianity. The faith goes back underground, wounded 2 years after the worst persecution it ever faced. One inexplicable decision on one bridge on one October morning. And the trajectory of the next 2,000 years bends. Constantine had saved Christianity from the empire. Nobody could save it from what came next. Because the question finally exploded. Alexandria, Egypt. A priest named Arian stands up with an argument that is brutally, elegantly logical. If God is the eternal Father, and Jesus is the begotten Son, then the Son had a beginning. There was a time when he was not. Jesus, said Arius, is the first and greatest of all created things. Divine, yes. God's masterpiece, yes. But created, not eternal, not equal. Half the East agreed with him. Riots broke out over Greek syllables. Constantine, freshly in control of a unified empire, was horrified to find his new, favored religion tearing itself apart. So in 325, he summoned over 300 bishops to Nicaea, in what's now northwestern Turkey, and demanded an answer. Once and for all, who is Jesus? The council's answer was overwhelming, nearly unanimous. Jesus is fully God, begotten, not made, one substance with the Father. Arius was condemned and exiled. The creed written in that room is still recited in churches every Sunday, 17 centuries later. Case closed. Except, and this is the part that should genuinely unsettle you, the case did not stay closed. Within a few years, Arian bishops had won back Constantine's ear. After his death, his son Constantius II, a convinced Arian, took the empire and went to work. Nicene bishops, deposed, exiled, replaced. Arian councils, convened, one after another. Athanasius, the great defender of Nicaea, was exiled 5 separate times by 4 different emperors. The creed had won the vote. The other side was winning the war. That's the world Jerome was staring at when he wrote our opening line. The whole world groaned to find itself Arian. The wrong Jesus, by the standards of every mainstream church today, was on the throne. Backed by emperors, enforced by law for decades. What finally ended it wasn't an argument, it was a spear. In 378, the pro-Arian emperor Valens was killed in battle at Adrianople. His successor, Theodosius, was a Nicene man. In 381, 56 years after Nicaea, the Trinitarian formula became the official religion of the Roman Empire. This time it held 56 years. That's how long settled took to actually settle. Every cathedral, every hymn, every image of Christ in glory. Downstream of a fight, the winning side spent most of losing. So run it back. A few dozen people in an occupied province. An emperor who burned them as garden lighting. their home city erased with the founding generation inside it. A 10-year imperial campaign to delete them. And then 50 years of their own emperors trying to overturn the answer they'd finally given to their oldest question. Any one of those goes differently. Maxentius stays behind his walls, Valens wins his battle, Marcion's church outbuilds the bishops, and the world you live in does not exist. Not the calendars, not the cathedrals, not the 2 billion believers. None of it was destiny. It was a man who wrote letters. Ordinary people meeting in back rooms while everything above them burned. A general's inexplicable mistake on a bridge. A spear on a battlefield in Thrace. History doesn't choose winners in advance. It runs the experiment exactly once, and then dares you to call the result inevitable. The Jesus you know won, but he was never the only Jesus running.